In this video, we will talk about hoisting in JavaScript, and hoisting is a very important concept that every JavaScript developer should know. As per the definition of w3school.com, hoisting is JavaScript's default behavior of moving the declarations to the top. Now let's try to understand this with the help of an example. So let's declare a function. Declaration function print hello world, and then I'm just printing hello world to the console. So console.log hello world, and then I am executing this function. So execution, then print hello world, and the hello world gets printed. So here we have first declared the function and then we are executing this function. Now let me try to execute this first and then declare it later. So if I try to do this, it still prints hello world. So let's go by the definition of hoisting. So as per the definition of hoisting, all the declarations are moved to the top. So this declaration will be moved to the top. So when JavaScript will run this script, it will move this declaration to the top like we have done here. Let's try another example. So instead of declaring a function, I am going to declare a variable here. So variable I equal to 10, and then I'm printing it to the console here. So console.log I. So it prints 10 here. Now what if I move this console.log before this declaration? So if I do this, it prints undefined, because what we are doing here, we are declaring a variable I, and then we are initializing the value of I to 10. So declaration and then initialization. So on this line, we are doing two parts. The first part is declaration and the next part is initialization. Now let's again go by the definition of hoisting. Hoisting moves only the declaration to the top. So it won't move this initialization part. It will move only the declaration part. So if I have to break this line, I can do it something like this. So variable I, that means that we have declared a variable, and then I is equal to 10. That means we have initialized this variable. Now this is the declaration part, and this is the initialization part. Now before running this script, JavaScript will move this declaration to the top. So this initialization will stay here, but the declaration part will be moved to the top. And the value is undefined here because we are just moving the declaration. We are not moving the initialization to the top. And this is what hoisting means. Let's try one more example. So what if I change this from var to let? But before that, let me just move it after console.log and change var to let. Now here we get reference error, cannot access I before initialization. What if I change this from let to const? So in case of const, we will have to do the declaration and initialization at the same line. So const I equal to 10. So here again, we get the reference error. So if you define a variable with let or const, hoisting will not happen. And that is something that you should know. JavaScript won't move any declarations that are defined with let or const to the top. In the examples, we were physically moving the declarations to the top just to get the understanding of what hoisting really means. But in reality, JavaScript does not physically move the declarations to the top. It actually moves all the declaration into the memory first before executing the script or the function. And we will now see how it does that. So when you write a JavaScript code, it is executed by the JavaScript engine. And every browser has its own JavaScript engine. For example, Google has V8, Mozilla has SpiderMonkey, Microsoft has Chakra, and Safari has Nitro. The JavaScript engine has two important data structures. The first one is called stack. It is also known as execution context stack. And this is where your script or your functions get executed. The second one is memory heap. And memory heap stores all the dynamic data like function definitions, objects, and arrays. And we will now see how this call stack or execution context works. So this is the script that we want to execute, and this is the call stack. Now let me just get a pen here. Okay, so this is the script and this is the call stack. And in this call stack, your script or the functions get executed. So as soon as JavaScript will load this script, it will start executing it. And that is known as execution context. So this execution context has two phases. The first phase is the creation phase, and the second phase is the execution phase. And in the creation phase, it scans through all the declarations in your JavaScript file and will load all the declarations into the memory. So JavaScript engine or this execution stack will find this function definition here. So it will move this to the memory. Then it finds a declaration here. So it will load this declaration into the memory. So I will make some boxes here. And once all the declarations are loaded, the execution phase happens. And in this execution phase, JavaScript engine will start, or the execution context here will start executing this script. So here it finds this console.log. So it prints undefined here because even though variable I is loaded, it's not initialized. So it prints undefined here, then it initializes the value of I to 10. So if you print console.log here, it will print I equal to 10. Now it starts executing this print hello world because this function definition is already declared in the memory. So this is how execution context works and how hoisting is the default behavior of JavaScript engine thanks to execution context. So here's the summary of it. Hoisting is JavaScript's default behavior because of how execution context works, and hoisting will not happen for any variables that are declared with either let or const. But it is always a good practice to have your declarations defined at the top of your script.